Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture on microeconomics. The focus of this economics brought to you by TSG classes uh, is the UGC NET examination conducted by CBSE for the posts of GRF and assistant lectures yearly. So we'll take a look at the syllabus as prescribed by UGC NET. So it deals with the basic supply and demand analysis, the production function. Sorry for the typo there. Also, the cost output relation, the different market structures, and the pricing theories. We'll begin the lecture by trying to explain what economics is. Economics is the study of scarcity. Scarcity of what? Scarcity of resources. The resources available to you are of limited nature. So the goods that are available to you, the money that is available to you, even the human resources available to you, and one of the biggest resource of limited nature is time. You only have 24 hours in a day when in which you have to organize all your work. So given those constraints, given those limited resources, how well do you make yourself, or how do you maximize your well-being is the study of economics. So in order to do that, you have to do multiple trade-offs. You do certain things, you do not do certain things, you make some choices. That is economics. So there are two broad branches of economics: microeconomics and macroeconomics, as evident by their self-explanatory names. Microeconomics is the study of economics at a smaller scale, dealing with individuals and firms. So the choices that individuals have to make given their constraints, and the choices that firms have to make given their constraints, and also firms have to keep in mind the choices of individuals. And macroeconomics is the study at a macro level, at a bigger level, at the level of the government, the society, the regulatory bodies, the decisions and choices that governments make, and how does it impact the life of individual is the study of microeconomics and macroeconomics. So since economics is a study of a real world phenomena, so markets have been there since human civilization. Families have been there since human has evolved into the present state, and the choices that they have had to make have been there, and the choices have been made by individuals for time eternity now. So we are trying to explain, the economics tries to explain those phenomena using models and graphs and intuition. So intuition is one, it's basically the use of common sense to explain things. So you will as your understanding of economics grows, you will realize that most of the theories are based on basic intuition. Then we apply some assumptions and models to make our to give our understanding a more concrete view. So that is how we explain economics. Going forward, the study of modern economics is incomplete without the mention of the great Adam Smith. Adam Smith, in his two books written in this 18th century, namely the Theory of Moral Sentiments and also the Wealth of Nations, had laid the foundation of modern economics. It's not that nobody had studied economics before Adam Smith, but nobody had tried to give it a structured approach as Adam Smith did. So the first contribution of Adam Smith is the theory of supply and demand, which is the basics of economics. We'll understand them in greater detail. The other controversial yet quite remarkable contribution of Adam Smith is the invisible hand. The principle of invisible hand was introduced by Adam Smith in his book The Wealth of Nations, wherein he said that the unobservable market forces that helps the demand and supply of goods in free market to reach the equilibrium automatically uh, is the individual the invisible hand. Secondly, he said that individuals working solely in self-interest bring about a greater good in the society, and he said that the economy can only work well in a free market scenario wherein everybody is working for his or her interest, and the people should be, you know, allowed to trade freely, and that's basically the theory of invisible hand. It has gained a lot of controversy in the recent times with negative externalities associated with capitalism, because the critics of this invisible hand theory uh, put the fundamentals of capitalism in the principle of invisible hand at the root of the capitalist nature that the market has attained in the recent times. The third and the most important contribution of Adam Smith is towards the division of labor and specialization, wherein he said if a product has to be produced through different processes. So in his example in the book, he has said that if to make a product there are 18 processes involved, and one single person, if he has to carry out all the 18 processes and make the product, he would not be able to make uh, you know, mm, the product at scale. However, if you have different people who specialize in doing certain things, the economies of scale that they would be able to attain is far larger, and therefore the specialization of labor, which has which has become very fairly intuitive now, but it was quite remarkable when it was first made. So the theory of demand, before we discuss the demand, we'll discuss something called as the utility or the cardinal utility. The basic assumption here is that utility can be measured, and measured in numerical terms. Utility is basically the happiness or the satisfaction that an individual derives from the consumption of a product. So marginal utility is the satisfaction that you get from the consumption of one additional product. We will look at the marginal utility and total utility through a graph, and the law of diminishing marginal utility as well. One of the things that always has to be kept in mind while understanding economics is that the assumption of rationality and ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means all other things being equal. As we have discussed, that the market is a very complex and dynamic microcosm where things change. There are multiple forces making multiple decisions. It becomes very difficult to predict or explain a scenario where multiple changes happen at the same time. So we make an assumptions that while understanding one parameter or impact of one parameter, we make the basic assumption that all the other things would not change. That makes a job fairly simple. The other assumption of humans being irrational is uh, what to say? It's it basically assumes that human make informed and rational choices, which might not necessarily be true at all times, but for the simplicity of economics, we believe and assume that humans make rational decisions. So the concept of marginal utility you can understand through uh, this table, where the unit consumed uh, is given on the first column. The total utility is, of course, uh, the sum of all marginal utilities. So if you consider any example, say you're very hungry and you want to have pizza, so there are multiple slices of pizza. If you're very hungry, the first slice of pizza will give you immense pleasure. It will satisfy your hunger, and the utility that you derive out of eating that slice of pizza would be higher. You will of course have the second slice as well, with depending on your appetite. And if you have an appetite like I do, you will have a second slice of pizza. You might not enjoy it as much as the first slice of pizza, but it still will give you a lot of satisfaction. So depending on your appetite, you have four slices of pizza, and then you realize that I'm almost full, and I cannot have anymore. So the any additional slice of pizza will not give you the same joy, same satisfaction, same happiness as the previous slice of pizza did. So after the fifth slice of pizza, the sixth slice of pizza possibly doesn't give you any additional pleasure, but you have it because somebody forced you to. But once you are done, once you have had your sixth slice of pizza, you're full. And if you have that another slice, an additional slice of pizza, you would possibly overstuffed. If you are a college student, you might fall asleep in the next lecture, so there is some negative side effect associated with it. So the utility of that additional slice of pizza is less, and as it goes along, the number of slices increases. You cannot have it after a certain point of time. So the law of diminishing marginal utility is that the utility, the marginal utility of the last unit of unit consumed goes down with the increase in the number of units consumed. The another very the the model that tries to explain the choice that people have between two goods is the indifference curve, wherein say you have had in your neighborhood, you only have pizza store, so all you do is eat pizzas morning, evening, afternoon, all you have is eat pizza. And suddenly somebody opens a South Indian restaurant in your locality, so now you have an option of having pizza, and also you have an option of having say dosas. So when you were consuming 10 slices of pizza in a day, you were overstuffed with pizza. So you were ready, for the first dosa, you were ready to trade off some quantity of pizza slices in order to get the first dosa. So the indifference curve uh, is along the curve, the total utility of the total utility for the combination of goods remains same. It's the choices that you make according to your budgetary constraints is given by the indifference curve. So it is basically the trade-off between two goods, between the quantity of good A that you can trade to have a certain quantity of good B. How that leads to the demand is something that we will see in the demand schedule. Demand schedule basically maps the prices of a good against the quantity demanded. So if we take for a fairly simple example, uh, the demand of apples in a locality. So we'll assume that there is a single shop in that locality and it sells apples. So if the price of apples is 500 rupees a kg, then the quantity of apples demanded is only 2 kgs. So there are very few, people who would be able to afford apple at that rate, at that price. So there are only two families or two people who are ready to buy apples if they are priced 500 rupees a kilo. But as the prices go down to 400 and 300, 250, you see the quantity demanded increases as more and more people can now afford it. So 200 rupees a kilo or 150 rupees a kilo, which is currently the price of apples in my locality here, 15 kgs of apples is the daily quantity demanded. And as the prices go down, even people with limited income are able to afford it. So if the prices go to 75 rupees a kilo, the quantity demanded is fairly high. So if you plot the demand with the quantity demanded, I think the price of the apples is on the y-axis, and the quantity of the apple demanded is on the x-axis. There is the axis have been incorrectly mentioned in the video. We'll make the correction. But the demand, given that the rest of the graph is correct, and the graph is a downward uh, facing curve, which shows that at 500 rupees a kilo, the quantity demanded is fairly low. So we'll try and understand the changes that happen to demand with different variables that impact the demand schedule at different times. So thank you, and we'll hope you join us for the next video. Thank you.